listening to the Exitology Unlock Your Profits, Unlock Your Potential show on the #1 global talk and news network on the internet, IBGR, International Business Growth Radio. I am Jason Wally Waldron, your host, and I am joined today by Michael F. Shine, the author of The Hype Handbook, 12 Indispensable Success Secrets from the World's Greatest Propagandists, Self-Promoters, Cult Leaders, Mischief Makers, and Boundary Breakers. So we're going to make some mischief making here today. When you're done listening to us, though, go and visit your favorite online bookstore, type in The Hype Handbook, and you'll be pleasantly surprised to find Michael's book there. But Michael, welcome back.
It's great to be here.
Let's make some mischief a little bit here. A lot of people feel like they're working in boring industries, and so I put on the khakis, I put on the collared shirt, I talk about golf even though I might not like golf, but everybody else is talking about golf, so I got to talk about this. What can these people who might kind of be feeling, I don't know, almost just like a clone or a zombie, but they're trying to stand out in their industry, right? You want to be sought out. You want to stand out amongst the noise in a very distracted environment. What can people in boring industries learn from these cult leaders, propagandists, and other mischief makers?
There's so much to talk about here because I'm a bit of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by accident. I never wanted to go into business. When I was a kid, a teenager, whatever, I was all about playing in bands, and all of my idols were sort of rebels. And so I studied those people almost accidentally and then formally. And what I realized is that they're the best marketers in the world. I call them hype artists, but you have all these professional marketers in B2B industries, which I eventually went into, I guess you would call B2B marketing. And they don't really always get great results because they forget about the emotional part. So there's a really interesting story. One of the greatest students of mass psychology was Dale Carnegie. If you read How to Win Friends and Influence People, there are hype strategies in there.
Yep.
And there was this low-level criminal in the early 60s who went to prison for frankly being a pimp and being a car thief. And while he was in there, they offered a Dale Carnegie course. And he took the course and he graduated top of his class. And he came out and he was Charles Manson. He used those strategies to form his cult. Now, the other person who used the exact same strategies is Warren Buffett. I don't know if you'd call it a boring industry, but it's finance. It's about, stocks and bonds and real estate. And he used the exact same strategies. So what I realized is you see this time and again. Mass psychology is mass psychology.
Yep.
And a lot of times the people who don't have compunctions about being rule breakers, whether they're awful people like Charles Manson, a cult leader, or David Bowie, who was a decent person, but was flamboyant and a rock star, they don't feel the need to fit in. So they really get crowds in the palm of their hand. They understand psychology. But the rest of us, and I can give you examples, can take the underlying psychological content of what they understand, change the packaging, and very ethically, because I don't want you to become a Charles Manson or anything like that, but very ethically use that understanding psychology to bring some excitement to your business. And you don't have to put on sparkly outfits like David Bowie. You can very much come across as the business person you are. And I can give you some examples of how that works.
Well, yeah. Let's get into some examples here in just a minute. But first of all, I love what you're saying here. That it strikes me, as far as I go, I'm a fan of 2 out of 3 of the examples that you just gave. Charles Manson being the one that I'm not really a big fan of.
I mean, if you were, we'd I don't know if I'd be sitting in for the rest of this session.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But and I say that sort of jokingly because it's like, of course, what's so interesting about what you're sharing there is each of those 3 people totally believed in what they were doing. And they used a certain tool set and skill set that you're inviting people to learn about to achieve their fame. And, David Bowie, for instance, it does strike me that he pushed all of the boundaries, and almost every time that somebody in the media or kind of the conversation started to try to box him in, he would reinvent
Right.
himself. Right? Just
100%. That's right.
famously,
Became famous for that. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And so these are, but at the end of the day, here's a guy who's playing the piano and some guitar, and all of a sudden giving people this amazing experience. And with Warren Buffett, people may not think about him as a cult leader, but oh, he sure is.
He's literally called the Oracle of Omaha.
The Oracle of Omaha, exactly. And and there are how many hundreds of thousands of people go there to the Woodstock of Capitalism, and
The shrine.
it's
Yeah.
a shrine to watch him answer questions and drink Diet Coke in front of the whole group. I mean, it's got its own, all of these different things. So I'd be very curious, those of us who very ethically believe in the transformation we're creating for our clients, and those of us who really believe in our cause, what are some examples that you've seen out there where somebody may have gone from boring to very compelling by applying these strategies?
I mean, a fantastic example is, and I use it all the time, is Basecamp, the customer relationship management tool. There could not be a more boring industry than CRM software.
Yep.
But what they did was, they looked at Salesforce, which was the big player in the field, who in their own way were fantastic at hype and an earlier era. But what they said is, we're never going to be Salesforce, right? I mean, and we don't want to be Salesforce. So they basically took their weaknesses and turned them into strengths, which you see a lot, right?
Absolutely.
So David Bowie and all of the rock stars from the 60s were very, very skinny, much skinnier than Elvis and those people. And we think of that as the rock star thing. They were all malnourished because they grew up on rations. That's why they were so skinny. They didn't have a lot of vitamins as kids because it was the Blitz.
Post-war.
Post-war, right? So now they were remarkably thin, and now that's the thing. So if you look at Basecamp, what they did was they said, okay, look, we're never going to be as big as Salesforce. We also never are going to have as many features as Salesforce. So what did? They made their strict down nature a benefit. They went out there and they said, fire your workaholics. They wrote a book called Rework. They said, if your clients ask you to go above and beyond, don't do it. If they ask you to put bells and whistles, say no.
Right.
We offer 5 features because simplicity is what you need in a CRM tool. And as a result, Basecamp is about as close to a cult as a B2B company can have. People will wear a Basecamp t-shirt. They're not going to wear a Salesforce t-shirt unless they're going to sleep in it. You know what I mean? That they got at a conference.
I do.
And it's because they've turned this weakness into a strength, and they've become, the misfits of that quote unquote boring world.
Yeah. And I love Reworked. It's a really good book. And I remember years and years ago having a very spirited discussion with someone, because there's actually a chapter in there, and the chapter says, you don't need an exit strategy. You need a commitment strategy.
Beautiful.
Right.
And you may not agree, but it's a great thing to say.
It is. And it's worth wrestling with. And so I love that. And so what you demonstrated there is essentially looking at sort of, we talk about this with a David versus Goliath strategy, right? So they looked at the Goliath of the business. Salesforce is taking over everything by adding every feature under the sun, right? Taking this customer's always right approach. And they essentially mapped out, how could we strongly and ethically and simply take the opposite position and show people how that's beneficial to them.
And Warren Buffett flips weaknesses into strengths. It's not an accident that we know that he eats McDonald's and drinks Coke every day, and we find that very charming and aw shucks. McDonald's and Coke is terrible. It's poison, Right. I mean, but he turned it into this, like, I eat horrible food, but it makes him look humble and aw shucks. Meanwhile, he's a multi-billionaire.
Right.
But he's able to get people to trust him because he's not champagne and caviar, right?
Notice. So here's the power of this, right? Here's the power of the hype that you're talking about, and having a cult and this built up around you. Everybody knows that Goldman Sachs is evil, right? It's just kind of assumed. All shucks, Warren Buffett was the one who bailed out Goldman Sachs in the 2008 Depression and used it to buy a railroad, so and then still had profit left over from Goldman Sachs.
James Altucher says he's the most sinister guy in finance. I don't know if I agree with that, but he's ruthless as can be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree that he's the most sinister person or not.
But I don't agree with that either, but he's certainly ruthless.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's like putting lipstick on Darth Vader or something. So it's really amazing.
And it's not that makes him a bad person, but
No.
he's not this shucks, just making stock trades based on businesses I like. You know what I mean?
Yep, yeah. Exactly. It's really amazing. Because
he turned the dials up on those features that present the way he wants to present, and turned the volume down on those features that don't present that way.
Yeah, and here's kind of the point that I'm driving at is his business model requires you to believe in keeping your money invested with him for the long term.
That's right.
And so because if he doesn't have these giant war chests, he's not making these killer deals that create value over the 15 years. The aw shucks is what keeps you there and keeps you feeling safe along the journey when he has his off years. And then he goes crazy when it's time to strike. And so there is a method to the madness. And I think what you're driving at here, Michael, is to have the story that people can buy in so that your brand can make the change that it wants to make in the world.
Right. Use those parts, flip those weaknesses into strengths that align with the story that you're telling.
Yeah.
Don't eat McDonald's and Coke just thoughtlessly. Eat McDonald's and Coke if it aligns with getting people to invest in Americana for the long haul.
Yeah, totally. Well, this has been a lot of fun. So before we break here for a couple quick messages from our sponsors, I want to mention that if you go to exitology.com, click on Contact Us, and send us a question or multiple questions, we will answer them in an upcoming episode. So thank you for being here. And we will be right back in 2 minutes with Michael F. Shine, the author of The Hype Handbook, 12 Indispensable Success Secrets from the World's Greatest Propagandists, Self-Promoters, Cult Leaders, Mischief Makers, and Boundary Breakers. We'll be right back.